University of Michigan, who will talk to us about what policy issues matter to students in the Midwest. Then we'll follow that up with Nick Presley and Jay Grandis from the PA Budget and Policy Center, who will discuss their work in Pennsylvania and how policy affects students there. And then lastly, we'll hear from Kansas Representative Barbara Ballard about how students can impact and shape policy. Each session will have a small Q&A session with time allowing, so feel free to put questions in the chat throughout the presentation. And at the end, when we open it up for Q&A, I'll read those out so that our various presenters can answer your questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Dr. Edie Goldenberg. Dr. Edie Goldenberg is the Professor Emerita of Public Policy and Political Science at the University of Michigan's Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy. She served as the Dean of the College of Literature, Sciences, and the Arts, and in 2017, she founded our group at Michigan called Turn Up, Turn Out, or TUT, to increase student voting participation. So Edie, if you'd like to take it away, we're good to go.
Thank you, Rose, and thanks for having me. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, but it's always dangerous to ask academics to talk for only 5 minutes. So I'm going to zip through. Landon, can we see a slide here? There we go. So I want to talk to you about just a very few things. One is the Dinners for Democracy, which is our voter education effort. Right now, this is one of our posters. It's each one of these is a 1-hour nonpartisan presentation that's designed and led by students for students. We want to talk about issues that students care about. And let's have the next slide, Landon. There was a Harvard youth poll back in 2021 that highlighted these 7 topics as high on the list of student interests. Now, actually, that changes over time, and it's always hard to know exactly where we stand based upon any particular poll. But those were kind of a hint for us to get started. And then the final slide, please. So we have launched quite a few of these workshops, which, as I said, are designed by students and delivered by students to students. These are the topics in order of the number of attendees. And you can see that over the last almost year, we have reached over 1,000 students. And there's some repeats here. I call them our groupies, but it's quite a few students. We have also experienced, on average, about twice as many sign up as come. We've been privileged, but with a couple of grants to support this. Actually, this doesn't show quite all of them because we started before we started monitoring them. We had one on one that was on racial justice that focused specifically on the death penalty. And we have a lot of them that are under development. But I just want to mention that these actually do fit mainly what Harvard discovered. We have quite a few: renewable energy, gender and climate, environmental justice, line 5, which is the pipeline under the Great Lakes, which is very much an environmental question. And then something on sustainable landscaping way down there, which we only were able to offer one before our great student went and graduated on us. But those are all environmental climate change topics. And that's a very hot topic of interest. That is an issue that students are very, very engaged in. We also have a set of them, race and criminal justice. We had, as I mentioned, the death penalty, which is not here. We had zoning, which actually takes a very strong racial justice focus. We had also the policing one down at the bottom, which also had a racial justice focus. And of course, we do mention racial justice when we deal with topics such as education policy, Medicaid expansion, and a variety of other topics as well. Then we have a set of women's issues, which were also reflected in that Harvard poll. Gender equity, which gender and climate, we have women's health, and we have women's economy. Those are pretty well attended. We have voting, which of course is really our bread and butter, voting access, which we gave one of these jointly with Ohio State, and also the redistricting one, which we gave at the beginning before the districts were settled on in Michigan, which very much, and actually the Ann Arbor ballot, I should mention, that was another one. We had some Ann Arbor elections coming up. And finally, health, which was another general area where we have gender and climate, we have women's health, we have Medicaid expansion. These are all important health issues. And I mentioned that we have a number of them under development. Actually, we gave several dinners, workshops on student loans, which was a very important issue. And then once again, the fellow who developed it is about to graduate, and he had to stop giving them because he was looking for a job and doing other things. We have, excuse me, one on gun safety, which is just about ready to go. Vaccine mandates, another health area. Ballot proposals, another voting area. We're going to have a lot of ballot proposals in Michigan. Cash bail, another racial justice area. The importance of primary voting in state and local voting, which is, of course, a voting area, and global supply chains and international trade. So these are the topics that our students bring to us, and they put in a lot of effort. Thanks to these grants, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting. And the only other thing I want to say right now is that we are delighted to share these with others, the slide decks and the toolkits that the students have developed, which would need some updating in some cases and some adapting to your particular state and concerns, but it wouldn't be quite as hard a task as developing them from scratch. And finally, I just want to mention that we're in the process of evaluating this in terms of student learning and eventually voting in 2022. There are some hints that students are learning, and that's, of course, what we are all about. So we're kind of excited about this, and we wanted to share it with you. And with that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Edie. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anyone would like to raise their hand and ask it out loud or type in the chat at this point, I can read it out for you as well.
Well, I'll just ask a quick question. It looks like these are all virtual. Is that true, or did you ever hold them in person?
Well, we wanted to do them in person, but we weren't able to because of COVID. So we have done these all virtually, and we award a gift card at the end, which students can use either at a Target for groceries or at a local restaurant. I should also say that we do this jointly with Flint, U of M Flint, and U of M Dearborn, and U of M Ann Arbor. So that's been a wonderful partnership. And we have local restaurants in each of those areas.
There was a comment in the chat, not a question, but the fact that conversations are led by students and for students is truly amazing. If you want to speak to that at all, Edie.
Well, I'm delighted. I just have learned a ton from my students. This is such fun. And, the students who work with me as assistants get paid, but from the grants. But there have been other students who've just done this. They've just developed these, as volunteers, and they put in a lot of work. We have faculty members who help if need be. I try to refer people to experts in the area if they need a little extra help or if we get the slides reviewed. But the best critics are the other students. Every one of these has to be you have to share your slides ahead and then you do a dry run. And the dry run is in front of students. And the students are actually better than faculty at ensuring that they're nonpartisan, which is very important for us on university campuses. So the students are very responsible and we give them suggestions, but they come as often from the students as they do for me. I would also say the students learn a lot. I mean, honestly, there are a couple of them that are doing this for credit, and it's perfectly legitimate for credit.
Yeah, you mentioned this a little bit in your answer, but there was a specific question from Alana saying that how do you connect student leaders for these conversations?
Well, it's in all sorts of different ways. Some of the students have taken my classes in the past, but I read about a student who's been very active in an area and I shoot them an email and ask if they'd like to chat. We have the participants who come to these, and we always have a slide in there about if you'd like to participate or develop one of these, just get in touch. We just had one this morning who was inquiring about a couple of gift cards she hasn't quite received because we're running a little behind, but also then said that's not why she really attended. She's really attending to learn, and she's really learned a lot, and she'd like to get involved. So we've had a number of these, of such students, and we just keep expanding. I've got to say that I wasn't sure when we started this just how active we'd be, but there's been so much student interest that we often have 4 or 5 of these a week. They are generally offered in the evening, the early evening, but we had one yesterday, which is not counted in the totals, on the Great Lakes, the Line 5 issue that was offered at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We also had a Donuts for Democracy right at the beginning over breakfast with a couple of the redistricting commissioners. And there was a lot of attendance to that. So we just, take things as we go.
Thank you for that, Edie. And since we're running out of time, this is just one last question from the chat. Marin asked, any suggestions for implementing a similar program on a small campus?
Well, when we first started this, I found alums who were willing to make contributions to sponsor a dinner for $500 or to just contribute toward the sponsoring of a dinner at any level. And they were quite willing to do this. I also think we give $15 gift cards. You could do 10 and it would probably work as well. I think, you could do this on a small campus and it builds community. And I think you could do this on any campus. Ours is huge. We welcome any student on any of the 3 campuses, graduate or undergraduate. And I want to just say that the mixture of people in the breakout rooms is wonderful. We'll have nursing students together with engineering students, neuroscience, policy, and they're from, at Michigan, they can be from all over the place. But even if they're just in-state students, they come from different parts of the state. So they have different perspectives. And it's a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Edie. Thank you for sharing that information with us. We're now going to move on to the PA Budget and Policy Center. So the PA Budget and Policy Center is a nonpartisan statewide policy research project of the Keystone Research Center, which provides independent, credible analysis on state tax, budget, and related policy matters. We'll hear from Nick Presley, the Director of Campaigns, and Jay Grandis, the Organizing Associate now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It'll just be me today. Jay is on another meeting, but thank you for inviting me. Thank you for sharing your program, Ms. Goldenberg. I love Michigan. I had the opportunity to work there early in my political career, and I'm a big fan. My name is Nick Presley. I'm the Director of Campaigns with the PA Budget and Policy Center, focusing on the We the People of Pennsylvania campaign. Let me tell you a little bit about our organization first, though. The PA Budget and Policy Center and the Keystone Research Center are essentially a think tank that comes up with policy ideas and solutions on how to make everyone's lives better. So these solutions come out from our super intelligent researchers, and they come out in really dense language and talk about how do we spend money on the programs we need in order to get the things that we need here in Pennsylvania. The We the People of Pennsylvania campaign is a little bit unique in that it is an advocacy arm, or an advocacy shop, as we say, attached to a research shop. So we are a political think tank, left-leaning progressive think tank, that comes up with policies and ways to make people's lives better, specifically working class and lower moderate income folks. And then we have the We the People of Pennsylvania campaign to advocate for those policies to be implemented. I'm going to dig into this a little bit more. First off, I always like to start this off by reading the We the People Pennsylvania campaign's kind of motto, or our mission statement. And that is, We the People is a campaign of, by, and for all the people of Pennsylvania. Our goal is to ensure that everyone can thrive, no matter whether they are Black, brown, or white, native born or immigrant, Asian or Latinx, poor or rich, live in cities or suburbs or rural areas. We call for decisive leadership and bold action from state lawmakers to keep our families safe today and to build a stronger, healthier, and more just future. We realize that for too long, we've let politicians who serve the interests of corporations and the rich divide us on the basis of what we look like, where we come from, where we worship, and how much money we have. And by dividing us, they have given us public policies that do too little to help most Pennsylvanians while making the rich and corporations wealthier. It's worth noting that while my campaign, the We the People Pennsylvania campaign, focuses on state level advocacy, we do have a sister campaign, the 99% PA, which works on federal level advocacy. We spent most of the last year urging the General Assembly, which is our state legislature, to spend billions of dollars of unspent American Rescue Plan monies. Billions of dollars. In fact, Pennsylvania had something like $10 billion unspent. Now, this is billion with a B. Bezos billions, right, is how I like to say that. So a lot of people don't understand quite that $1 billion is a lot more than $1 million. It is an unfathomable amount of money for a lot of folks. And the Biden sent our state money. We refused to spend it on people, and partly because of that, money, we've seen a faster than expected recovery for our nation's economy, which has led to surpluses and partially causing our inflation issues. Why does this matter to you all? Why does our advocacy matter? It's because there are several issues that we have worked on that directly relate to students. For one thing, I had mentioned it kind of at the start. I had my political career start in 2014. I'm actually formerly incarcerated. I live at Penn State College, Pennsylvania. So I have a lot of personal experience with college campuses. I went to Penn State myself, and I spent a lot of time in my 20s in and out of county jail there. So what happens on campuses is something I can directly relate to. And I can tell you, I've put together internship programs at several previous organizations as well, both electoral and issue advocacy. And we always have heard from students that the reason students don't get engaged because the issues don't seem to affect y'all. But that is simply not the case. What we see then is that when we look at the issues that We the People Pennsylvania campaign organize around, we see that there's a ton of overlap. Let me talk about a couple of the issues we're working on now. One thing we're working on is housing and rental assistance. I don't know about y'all, but I know that in State College during the pandemic, you suddenly had students who were paying for housing that they could not go to. Penn State was one of the campuses that went mostly virtual. And so you've got these parents who are often middle class who are trying to pay rent in two places, and there's certainly a need for housing relief. In fact, there's even a hidden problem in many college campuses. A recent Penn State study showed that 14% of students indicated that they were homeless. That meant doubled up, sleeping on couches, or otherwise not living in a situation where they can afford their homes. And so one of the issues that we work on, we've been advocating with We the People Pennsylvania, is housing and rental assistance on a statewide level here. We believe that there is a surplus of American Rescue Plan dollars, and that we can use that dollars to provide housing and rental relief for people who are lower moderate income. Higher education funding is another issue that certainly overlaps with student concerns. And that is, when you look at the amount of higher education or funding that your state provides through their own means, you see that that directly affects the cost of tuition to state schools. It also affects the availability and amount of grants and loans coming from the state. And it's worth noting that in Pennsylvania, our secondary education is funded at one of the lowest rates in the entire country. We also work on raising the minimum wage. Look, Pennsylvania has a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. I hope there is some cringes happening behind that black box, because I think it's criminal that we do that. In fact, if you look around the states surrounding Pennsylvania, you'll see that every single one of those states has raised their minimum wage at least once in the last 10 plus years. Pennsylvania has not raised the minimum wage since the 90s. I want to say the 90s, I could be wrong, but since the early 2000s, it's been over a decade since that happened. And that, as a former student, someone who lives in State College, knows that that directly affects what kind of jobs you have while you're taking classes, what kind of pay those jobs make. In State College, Pennsylvania, and in many other college towns and campuses that I've visited across in my time, one of the largest sectors is the service industry. The largest sectors is food service. You know, I have actually, it was up until this year. This year's the first year I've got more experience in advocacy than I do managing restaurants. I had like 8 years of Jimmy John's experience, which I'm sure a lot of the people on this call can relate to. It's 8 years of Jimmy John's experience up until recent that outweighed that. And so that directly affects the pay of jobs you can have while you're in school. And again, tipped wage is included in this. A lot of service industry employees in college, it's one of the largest industries where I'm from, and probably one of the largest industries and where a lot of y'all live as well. Other issues that affect students that are important to pay attention and that We the People Pennsylvania do is small business support. Again, service industry jobs in many places, those are smaller businesses. Those are not the big chain restaurants. And if you're seeing more and more chain restaurants these days, it's because these small businesses are not receiving the support that they need in many places. Look, we want to raise the minimum wage. We got to make sure that businesses that are not multinational conglomerates can do that without going out of business themselves, right? We also work on healthcare for all. We work on paid family and medical leave. We work on democracy defense. Look, a lot of y'all are 18 when you come to college for the first time. This is defending the right of everyone who's legally able to vote. College is often the very first chance for many of y'all to vote. And part of democracy defense is making sure that we have funding for this, policies that make voting easier to understand and more accessible to every legal voter, et cetera. You keep hearing me talking about funding, and it's in the name of our organization, Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. Why do we do advocacy around the budget? It's an important part of what we do. But here's the thing, we can have all the nice policies we want. We can make grand statements. We can even pass laws dictating that this is how a certain thing is supposed to be. But if you do not fund the department, or you fund the program, or provide money to make that department or that program work, then it's just words. It's just lip service. In fact, a budget, as we say in the organization, and I'm sure we're going to get a smile from my old colleague Ricardo here, our budget is our moral document, okay? What we choose to fund is what we care about. So you can listen to a politician saying all they want, that I want this, I want that. If that politician or that legislator does not actually go and fight for funding for that, then that's just lip service. And so a large part of the work that we do with the PA Budget and Policy Center is around making sure that we don't just talk about what we want to fund, we talk about ways to fund it, and we then use our research department, these super intelligent, wonky political think tanks, to come up with ways to actually fund it. We actually, we take up a unique part of the ecosphere. we're part of a national network of similar organizations called the Center for Budget and Policy, or led by a DC-based Center for Budget and Policy Priorities. It's essentially a group of think tanks that do research on fiscal and budgetary policies, and then couple that with advocacy in order to make the lives of low and moderate income families better. Again, we've added an advocacy shop to this so that we can take this, like I just was reading a report 10 minutes ago on the next Pennsylvania state budget, and there is no way I'm going to come onto this call and say, listen, y'all, we've got an $11.8 billion budget this year, and that means that we could put $220 million in the special. No, I'm going to explain to you why the amount of money we have matters. I'm going to explain to you why this kind of money needs to go into this. And so if it's one thing I've learned in my last 9 years of advocacy, is that we have to come at all of the issues that are facing us as Americans and as even, immigrants or whomever you are, whatever background you come from all different angles. I did a lot of work in criminal justice reform. No criminal justice reform works if it's not coupled with legal or legislative advocacy, so changing laws, executive advocacy, ensuring that the laws that are changed and that the police systems are operating in ways that they don't murder people in the streets, and also through the judicial means, because we can say no more cash bail all you want, but if the judges are going to continue giving you cash bail, it doesn't matter. The same thing with any type of advocacy. We have to come at it from multiple means, and the budget is just one of those ways. We always need more people to get engaged, because often it's only public pressure, and it's got that degree of public pressure implied in multiple ways in the right way that will force change. I'm pretty sure the next speaker is going to come on and talk a bit about how you can actually shape policy and affect change first, but I did want to open it up for questions, and I'm also going to drop my email address in the chat here. If you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that don't get asked on this call through there. Or if you'd like to just sign up for a mailing list, you can click on the wethepeoplepa.org link and sign up, and you'll get to see what we're working on a regular basis.
Thank you so much. We have our first question in the chat. It says, the work and policy you're advocating for seems amazing, but what ways do you include and center young people in your process rather than just advocating on behalf of them?
That is an excellent question, outright. So we are always looking for more help. One of the things that is super important to me, given my background, is that we have representation in the room when these kind of issues are being decided on. We don't just want to say, all right, this looks like an issue that you should care about, and so we're going to tell you what we're going to advocate for. No, we're actually in the process right now of doing a series of listening tours around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. These are mostly virtual, but they will be in person here soon as we start to open up some more and the weather continues to get nice. But it's not going to be, it's not what I just did here. I came here and told you what we're working on. Those ideas came from the community. We've held several already. We just held another one last Sunday in Pittsburgh with an organization called Casa San Jose that advocates for the Latinx community's rights. So the short answer to your question is listening conversations. So where we come and you tell me what it is we should be fighting for, right? In fact, the whole housing piece of our platform came out because in a series of community conversations that were held in the past by some of my predecessors, it came to light that across the entire Commonwealth, everyone's having problems paying rent. So we decided, listen, we need to go and advocate for that as well. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much for that answer. Do we have any other questions? You're welcome to type them in the chat and I can read them out for you, or even just unmute and ask them at this time. And if not, we can move into a broader discussion a little bit. It looks like Representative Barbara Ballard may have been held up and unable to join us. So we're going to move into a discussion on how we can use the information we just learned from Mr. Presley and Dr. Goldenberg to make an impact on our campus. So I'll start with a question for both of our panelists, and then if anyone else would like to add questions, that would be really wonderful. So what's one way that we could take the information that we learned from you today, panelists, and implement them on our particular campus? Is it through hosting listening sessions on our campus? Is it through developing a dinner for democracy? How might we go about those processes as well? And Professor Goldenberg, maybe we could start with you.
Well, we've put together a list of steps for developing a Dinner for Democracy. And we invite people to come as guests and see one in action. We also are, very you'll see the slides if you are interested in just seeing what another topic would look like. And it'll give you a pretty good sense of what happens. We always have breakout sessions where students get to talk with each other. And students facilitate those. I do too, but most of them are facilitated by students. And they learn how to facilitate quite well. And they also learn good presentation skills. So there's a lot you could do, and we'd be glad to help. Just get in touch and let us know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's the right of it. I think Rose had it right. Holding or organizing listening sessions on your campus is a great way. Seeking internships, our shop also pays interns. That's the way it should be, by the way. So props for that. Our shop also pays interns. So seeking internships, and really, if you recognize that there is a lack and there is something that is not present in your area, and it should be some kind of effort like this, then creating a networking, creating relationships with folks like me, folks like Professor Oldenburg here, is a way to understand and learn how to put this stuff together. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for someone taking me under their wing 9 years ago and saying and helping me learn how to do all this. And so, I'm happy to do that. Anyone worth their salt should be happy to continue to expand that. We always need help and advocacy.
Nick, if they're going to call you Nick, all my students call me Edie. So I think we could get rid of the doctor and become a little more formal, because in this setting, we're all colleagues.
How about it? Okay.
Learning from each other. Yep.
No problem. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I don't know how many of y'all in here are from Pennsylvania, but if you're from Pennsylvania, this link is going to be a sign up for our community conversations or listening to. If you're interested, go ahead and fill that out. If you'd like to talk more about the back end for creating one of these yourself, hit me up and I'll walk you through it.
And I think to sort of go on some of the points that were just mentioned, we have a lot of student leaders on this call that are having real impacts right now in their own communities. And so I sort of wanted to open it up to any young people or students on the call to talk about the work you're doing in your campus or communities and the changes that you're able to push for. I think that's an important part of this conversation. We want all of you to be part of that. So feel free to unmute, chat about any projects you're working on, anything you want to do, anything you advocated for. This is a space for you as well.
If I could just say a word about the question in the chat first, I would say that, the stigmas around young people not being taken seriously have a lot to do with the perspective that young people don't vote. And, I had a former student who had just stepped down from the House of Representatives, who came to a class I was teaching on student voting. And he said, "Why are you teaching this class? Students don't vote. We don't, And he came to that class and the students were very engaged. If you will get engaged and get your friends to vote, you will be taken more seriously. And if several of you send messages asking about the same position, not carbon copy messages, but your own messages to your representatives, after about 3 of those, they'll begin to pay attention to an issue. It doesn't take a whole lot.
I can add to that, if I may. Edie's right, absolutely. I was actually typing this in the chat. We show up. When legislators, elected officials, and other people in power start seeing the same faces over and over again, and the same type of people over and over again, they start to pay attention. When students start banding together and start showing they have political power, they start to pay attention. It is my opinion, and I think a lot of little political activists will agree with me, that one of the strongest levers to power is affecting people's elections. A lot of these political people, these political animals, care very much about getting reelected. right? And so if we start threatening that and we start showing up and saying we can vote together, we can move together, then we start changing things. Look, State College, Pennsylvania, where I live, the home of Penn State, had a borough council with an average age of 80 and with an average race of white until this past year. This past year, you know what happened in 2021? There was a huge groundswell of support from not just people who were townies, not my age, 30s, but people who are younger, people who were in college at Penn State. They started to vote, and we have elected the first formerly incarcerated Black man to Borough Council. We've elected an Indian American law professor who got the most votes in Borough Council history, and we elected one of the art professors from Penn State into Borough Council. And these folks are going to change, or are already making changes to address the way the police interact with our citizens, and the way that this town versus gown mentality, which is what you were talking about earlier, shows up.
Thank you for that, both Edie and Nick. We've got another comment in the chat. I think young people need more adults advocating for them and to be mentoring and supporting their efforts. Young people are there, but adults need to make space. Maybe for our panelists, if you could speak a little bit to how your work makes space for young people. I think we've talked about that a little bit, but maybe there's another angle on it we could elaborate on.
I will just mention one experience I had with a group of seniors. So a group of our students volunteered to make a presentation to a group of seniors that has regular presentations. I had been invited, but I asked them to get involved, and they were very willing to. And after that presentation, the seniors wanted to know, well, what could they do? And I said, well, one of the things you could do is your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, you could talk to them about voting. You could even help them vote. You could vote together. And so there are things that senior citizens can do. We don't pass up any opportunity to talk to any group, because you never know, first of all, when somebody will make a contribution that'll support your efforts on campus. And also, we're all in this together. We want to get everybody participating as active members of a democracy.
100% agreed. And Adriana, you're right. It's part of my job. Look, I just turned 39. It's weird to me. Part of my job is to get out of your way. When I was younger, that was one of my personal mottos, either work with me or get out of my way and let me do it myself. Part of my job is to set the stage, give any guidance that's necessary, and then move out the way. I'll never forget, it was in 2019. No, it was in 2020. This high school senior reached out to me. She saw me do a presentation and was like, you are now, it was on criminal justice reform. She said, you are now my mentor. My senior project is going to be to primary our district attorney. And then this young woman proceeded to, basically tell me what she wanted from me, what she needed from me to help her achieve these goals. And I just was there to support. I think that's important, and we need to recognize, as adults, that this is our role in this fight. If it's, I'm a millennial, and we used to say, oh, if we just wait long enough, people will get out the way. Listen, y'all, that does not happen. That does not happen, especially not with science being what it is. People are living longer. People are holding on to their power longer. So we just got to go. We got to do the right things to build power on a grassroots level, and then take it. I dropped my email in the chat. Anyone on this call could feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help, guide you through any considerations around advocacy.
And there are a lot of people, senior people, who would want to help but don't know how they can help. They don't know what to do. They don't, you think you don't know what to do. They don't know what to do either. And you got to ask. One thing about small college campuses, you've got merchants in your area who serve a lot of students. They contribute, they either contribute a deep discount for food, or they actually contribute food or favorite coffee or donuts to our efforts because we ask them. And we even ask them sometimes if they're willing to donate a gift box or something special if we all do some kind of raffle. some kind of prize for something. So you gotta get out and ask.
Thank you so much for those pieces of advice. I know they really helped me think about this in a new way. So we're running out of time. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank both Edie and Nick for speaking with us and everyone for coming to the session with your thoughtful questions and comments. We're now going to return back to the main room for the next session. So it was really great speaking with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. And shout out Ricardo. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the beaches where I always make you laugh, to the forest where we found our hidden path, to the summertime of 2005, when we were still alive, when we were still alive. 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 When we were still alive.
Sometimes I feel like I done lost it, and I don't even really know the cost yet. But every time fever's on my mind, you remind my soul that I'm free. I know I can't go on my own. You came so I wouldn't have to go it alone. You took the long road so you could show me home. Found love better than I've ever known. So now I know that I can say you are exalted above everything on the earth that I've seen. Cause I know that my dreams come alive in the love that you promised to me. I'll keep singing your praise and you know I believe. Even when I'm down in the darkness, you call my name out loud. Used to think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. Even when I'm down in the darkness, you call my name out loud. Used to think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. I'm never alone now. You were always in it for the long ride, even when it felt like it's a long drive, even when it felt like it's a long time. Lord, I know that you were always on time. That's just what you do, that's just how you be, that's just how you lead, that's just how I'm free, that's just how I see you got everything. That's just what I need every single day. You keep me breathing, my heart keeps believing that. Even when I'm down in the darkness, you call my name out. You call me my name now. think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. Even when I'm down in the darkness, you call my name out loud. Used to think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. Turn my life around. You're the one who turned my life around. Even when I'm down in the darkness, you call my name out loud. Oh, used to think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. I'm never alone now. Oh, when you back me there, I'm never alone now. Used to think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. Used to think I had to do it on my own, but I'm never alone now. Too many days in the darkness, without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. Just like a seed in a garden, you will grow to be tall. Staring out over miles of land without it, but wanting to build up walls. Lift me up in your branches, we can watch the sunrise. Just a couple of bruised up souls that believe that it was worth one more try. With every star, we are born again. Open your heart and spend less time in your head. With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. We can, yeah. Let's go. Keep up with the small talk. Fast car with the brakes off. We don't need to see that far. Yeah, I see you're a hot thing. I know I'm an option. It ain't gonna break my heart.
We can make a plan instead of talking. We could check the vibe up in the room.
what you in the mood for. Just chill at the dance floor. You tell me if you're down.
We can make a plan instead of talking. We could check the vibe up in the room. Just saying I'm not one to just talk, babe. So tell me what we gonna do.
You wanna pull up with your friends and then come over. Cause I don't feel like sending one more text. Come over. We can slow it down tonight. When you get here, just come inside.
We can slow it down tonight. When we wake up, we'll decide.
You wanna pull up with your friends, then bed. Come over. Cause I don't feel like sending one more text. Come over. You wanna pull up with your friends, then bed. Come over. Cause I don't feel like sending one more text. Come over.
I'm on the search to find it. I may insist, but I'll overcome. Cause I'm an optimist. It keeps me coming back. When you call me, is it gonna go? I hear it running through my blood. If I'm feeling it, then I don't stand a chance. Don't stand a chance. We never stand a chance. Don't stand a chance. Don't stand a chance. We never stand a chance. Don't stand a chance. I feel the night behind me. I can't be fooled, but I put up a fight. Cause I'm an optimist. Just keep me coming back. When you call me, is it gonna go? I hear it running through my blood. If you feel it, then I don't stand a chance. Don't stand a chance.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. If everyone can give me like a thumbs up, I would really appreciate that. Good afternoon. My name is Sebastian Canales, and I'm a student advisory board member for the Campus Vote Project. And it is my absolute honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Clarissa Unger is a co-founder and the current executive director of the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. Clarissa hails from Kansas, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, as well as her Master of Public Administration from the University of Kansas. She also holds a Master's of Science in Comparative European Politics from Trinity College of Dublin. And Clarissa is a champion of the student vote, and we are so honored to hear from her today. Please join us in welcoming Clarissa Unger to the virtual podium.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Well, it is truly an honor to be here with you all today for the first ever Midwest Student Voting Summit. As Sebastian mentioned, as a native of Kansas and a proud Jayhawk, this summit holds a very special place in my heart. And while I'm joining you all today from Washington, D.C., where the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, I've been reflecting a lot lately about what's going on in states across the Midwest, particularly in Kansas, and not just because the Jayhawks are playing in the Sweet 16 tonight. About a month ago, I wrote an op-ed with the head of the Kansas Civic Engagement Table about the redistricting process in Kansas and the way new congressional maps have the potential to dilute students' votes. For those that might not be familiar, the new congressional map places the state's two largest universities, the University of Kansas and Kansas State University, into the rural 1st Congressional District, artificially combining the university's two distinct communities with a larger surrounding population whose needs and representative interests differ vastly from student voters. The new district's makeup has the potential to diminish student voters' ability to elect a representative to Congress who prioritizes the needs of university communities over the interests and priorities of a mostly rural population, who likewise are poorly served by being grouped together with tens of thousands of college students. And as a native of rural Western Kansas and an alumna of KU, all of which are now lumped together, I know and love both of these communities. These unique needs, qualities, and values that distinguish them from one another merit their own districts and representation. And the redistricting process uncovered no evidence that the communities themselves disagree. This challenge is not unique to Kansas. Across the Midwest, students and young people face gerrymandering, suppressive voting laws, and a number of other barriers to voting. But young people across the Midwest are also poised to have a disproportionately high impact on elections up and down the ballot in 2022. But you can't let any of those attempts to suppress your and your friends' votes hold you back from making your voices heard. Now, I promise I won't bore you too much with my own background, but I too started this work when I was an undergrad myself at the University of Kansas. After growing up in a small town in Northwest Kansas, I started volunteering with elections after getting involved with the Robert J. Dole Institute of Politics, a bipartisan institute at KU's campus that promotes political and civic participation. And while not every campus has a similar institute or center, these can be great hubs for nonpartisan student voter engagement work, not just for the campuses they're located at, but for students across the state. Not surprisingly, as Sebastian mentioned, I was a political science major, and at the time, I fundamentally understood the importance of voting, but it wasn't until I got more involved at the Dole Institute that I really understood that communities could gain power by voting, and that gaining power for your community was a really impactful way to influence legislation, affect representation, and combat injustices. At the time, I didn't really know where to start, but I knew that I had to do something. It was folks at the Dole Institute who guided me and ultimately helped me get connected with a presidential campaign. I began organizing my fellow students, registering them to vote, and encouraging them to actually exercise their right to vote. As my organizing continued, at one point I was offered a national position with a student organizing group, but I turned it down. I was just this girl from a small town in rural Kansas. What did I know about leading other organizers on a national level? I thought I was too inexperienced. I thought someone else surely knew better and would step up. And if I'm honest, I was probably a little scared I would do something wrong. I'm sure there are some of you here today who might feel the same way about getting started on your own campus or in your own state. Compelled to be here, compelled to make a difference on your campus, but a little nervous, a little unsure of what to expect or where to start, or even of what's possible. But let me tell you, you are most certainly in the right spot if you are looking to make a difference on your campus, across your state, and in our democracy. The truth is, though, that the work can feel isolating. It can be difficult to navigate all the partners, the campus bureaucracy, the election laws, but don't worry. If each of you leaves here today remembering one thing, remember this: you are not alone. There are campus partners, community partners, and national partners that have shown up for you here today and will continue showing up for you in whatever way you need from the moment this summit ends. And you all have so many more resources available to you than I had when I was doing this work as an undergrad. And you're so much smarter for starting so early, for planning so strategically, and for networking and learning from folks at other institutions. I hope that each of you will take advantage of every opportunity that was presented to you today and of all the opportunities available to you throughout the year through the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition, the Campus Vote Project, the All-In Challenge, and other partners. This work is too important for any of us to do this alone and without support. We all need each other, and we're all in this together. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here today, to learn from each other, for giving me the opportunity to be here with you, and for everything you are doing and will continue doing to strengthen our democracy. Thank you, and rock chalk.
Thank you so much, Clarissa, for your inspiring message. On behalf of the Campus Vote Project and all of the summit participants, we thank you for your time today. The work you do is so important. Before we move to the statewide breakouts, we want to thank each of you for coming today. In the coming days, we will send an email with the copies of the recording, slides, and a survey to help us plan for better conferences. We will now move into statewide breakouts. You may select your appropriate state at the breakout feature, and we will not return to the main room following your state session. Thank you.
If you're in Michigan, you will see that there is not a room for you, and that is because we will be switching Zooms. So if you're looking for the Michigan breakout room, there won't be one. Check in chat, and I just posted a Zoom link. And there's the password, which is CVP.